in the audience with us today, we've got a couple of people who are already kind of users. You're probably used to a lot of the features already. We're going to show you some of the new things that you can do on the platform. It's changed a little bit. We've introduced a whole fresh new look. And there's also a bunch of you on the call who maybe haven't played around with Atom yet. And so today's an opportunity for you to get a view into what does Atom do, and how do we differentiate from the other products that are out there. So, we've actually brought in a ton of new innovations onto the V2 of the platform. And so, yeah, we're super happy to have you here today. So in terms of an agenda, what we're going to go through is we'll do a quick introduction with the founders, so me and Hamilton, who is also there on camera. We're going to go through a bit of our story as well, how we got to where we are today, as well as some personal backgrounds. Then we'll touch briefly on, what is the actual challenge that we're solving? I'm sure a lot of you are already familiar with some of these challenges on a day-to-day basis of finding funding opportunities. A lot has changed in the last kind of 6 months. And so, why did we build Atom V2 and what are we actually trying to solve here? We'll then move on to a demo of the V2 platform. Ham, our CTO, is going to run through that. And then we'll just have a quick discussion between the founders, me and Ham, as to the lessons that we've learned over the last 2 years of building Atom, why we thought we had to build Atom essentially from scratch again, in mind of all of the kind of like federal changes. And as mentioned, we'll save 10-15 minutes at the end for Q&A. If you do want to come off mic, ask a question or post in the chat, we'll come back to that at the end. So thank you everyone for being here today. So just a little bit about me, and I'll let Ham introduce himself as well. So I'm Tom Eyre. I'm one of the co-founders here at Atom Grants. I'm also the CEO. But I don't have a commercial background. I actually have a research and technical background as well. I studied physics in the UK. As you can probably tell from my accent, that's where I'm from originally. I am actually here right now as I just went through ACL surgery, and so I'm based in London for the next couple of months recovering. But we're usually based in New York. That's kind of where we're headquartered, very focused on the US, as the audience kind of makeup shows. In terms of like my journey, how I got to building Atom, I joined an early stage startup instead of going down a PhD track. Basically, I wanted to be a founder at some point. I knew I wanted to become a technical founder, and so I thought, what's the best way of doing that? Well, let's learn how to become a software engineer. So I spent a couple of years doing that before realizing, I really wanted to start something myself, and that's how I ended up meeting Hamilton. So we'll touch on our joint story, but I'll just let Hamilton introduce himself quickly.
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Hamilton. I'm from the States, obviously. I went to Middlebury for my undergrad, where I studied chemistry and computer science, so kind of come from a liberal arts background, but was always more research focused. So after Middlebury, I went to Caltech out in LA, where I started a PhD in physical chemistry. I was there for about 2 years before I kind of decided that the PhD path wasn't right for me. So ended up, oh, we've got a Middlebury alumni. Yes, I love it, Jennifer. Yeah, so I went to Caltech. I was there for 2 years and kind of decided to master out at that point. I was doing physical chemistry research, but really my favorite part of it was like coding and building programs to kind of help with our research, and kind of decided that I should just go do that full time. So left grad school, went to and joined a tech startup. I was their first developer hire, kind of building that platform from the ground up, and kind of similar to Tamer, then kind of led me down the path to deciding that I wanted to start my own company where, met Tamer and we kind of teamed up.
Cool. So we bit about our kind of joint story. So we actually met at a incubator called Entrepreneur First in the UK. Ham actually lived on my sofa for the first couple of months of the inception of our company. Back in the early days, we had both come from software engineering backgrounds. And when we first started our company, we were actually solving problems for a completely different type of customer. We were trying to build tools for developers. We spent a good couple months actually going down that path before we realized that we weren't really passionate about solving problems for this group of users. And given that like Ham and I had a shared background in research, him having done physical chemistry at Caltech, I personally I grew up surrounded by research. My dad was a professor of mathematics at Oxford. I had my physics background. We really kind of decided that actually we wanted to solve problems for researchers and the research ecosystem. And so we had this moment of a kind of passion crisis and decided to really just pivot out of what we were doing previously and go hard and go deep in the research ecosystem. And at that time, we didn't really know what our company was going to become. We spent a bit of time out in the US at the Caltech campuses, actually. You can see that image here. That was kind of the early days of Atom being kind of ideated. That was really fun, on Ham's old campus. We basically just went into our personal backgrounds. Ham had kind of seen funding insecurities amongst his, the PIs that he was working with during the early days of his PhD. I myself, having grown up, I saw the good sides, but also the bad sides. A lot of the bureaucracies around research, and we just spoke with hundreds and hundreds of researchers and research administrators. And one of the key challenges that kept coming up, and I'm going to touch on this on the next slide, was that finding funding and applying for grants just took up too much time. The stat that's thrown around quite often is over 50% of a researcher's time is spent, looking for and applying to funding. Part of that is, ideating and coming up with your next ideas, but there are a lot of manual processes involved that the research office has been conceived to support those researchers. That actually, we realized that with the advances in AI, we could really build a platform that supported the research office supporting the researchers, right? And so we went through the incubator and we got a bit of early funding. We won a grant from Digital Science as well back in the early days of Atom that actually brought us kind of closer to a launch. We ended up launching, I think it was just over a year and a half ago now. And, there were lots of kind of tireless nights coding. You can see one of our hackathons here in Ham's apartment. We've been to a couple of, conferences too during that time. We were at SRAI last year, and we'll be there again this year. Oh, hi, Steve. Good to see you. So that kind of got us to where we are today. Sandy is, in the audience. She's one of our customers with USF and actually one of our strategic advisory board as well. And so the whole platform really has been built in collaboration with researchers and research administrators. We have our own personal opinions, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's you guys who know what you want to use, what features make sense. And so we're always looking for design partnerships. We're always looking for just advice from people who are using the platform, finding grants on a daily basis, like what can we do to support you better? And so we got to a point in January with everything that was going on in the federal scene. There's been a real drive across the board to diversify where you're getting your funding from at institutions in the US, right? It's an unfortunate reality, but there is a lot of funding out there, and so our previous platform, we were doing a lot of the same kind of traditional web scraping, these kinds of things, but the kind of need to diversify and expand our kind of funding opportunity coverage really led us to start exploring, how can we do that better, easier, and actually make the product better for everyone who's already using it today and people who are going to use it in the future. So that's a bit about how we got to Atom V2, and we'll just quickly touch on what are we solving? A lot of you already know, right? We're a grant search engine. We use AI in a lot of interesting ways to kind of help you find those funding opportunities. But yeah, what is the challenge? So ultimately, when we were speaking to you guys, those hundreds of researchers in those early days, the things that we kind of kept hearing were that grants were just really hard to find. Maybe you had search engines already, but keywords were something that were a bit of a tricky thing to use because, for example, Ham did chemistry, right? He could put the keyword chemistry in, but that hides a lot of meaning because chemistry could mean chemicals, but it could also mean human chemistry, right? And so, when you're just using a single keyword, you lose a lot of context. So the existing platforms that were out there were hard. A lot of information was just spread across the internet. So just hard to find was the general kind of takeaway. The second piece, was that grants are really complicated to apply to. There's so many bits of information that are hidden within complex documentation, RFPs. Michael, who's one of these researchers that we spoke to in the early days, put it quite well. There are just so many rules that, in his opinion, were simply unknowable, right? Because of the number, the amount of documentation you had to go through. And so, while we were going through that process of ideation, it was around 2 years ago, and it was the time when LLMs were really becoming quite a big thing. They were getting a lot better. ChatGPT 3 came out, and we realized there was a big opportunity to build a new search engine that really worked for researchers. Integrating AI into the platform from the ground up. And so that's kind of where Atom came from. That's the challenges that we're trying to solve. And so yeah, Atom is a kind of collection of powerful AI tools to help you find research funding. We're not just a grant database. There's a lot of automation involved in our platform. We support the research office as well. And I'm gonna pass over to Ham here quickly, who can run us through a demo of the new platform, and he'll show you some of the new features. We'll probably also go over some of the existing features, so this might be familiar for a lot of you in the audience. But there are also some newly interested people too. So Ham, I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, perfect. So I think at the core of this new revamp we've done to our platform is, of course, AI. I think from the get-go, we were kind of an AI-first platform. But I think over the last year, let's say, or even 6 months from when we initially developed the platform, there's been such significant advances in AI. We kind of needed to do a full revamp to make our platform take the most advantage possible of some of those upgrades. So I'll kind of do a full run through of the platform. Like Tamer said, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this before, and I'll kind of highlight some of the new features that we have available from Atom 2.0 and this big launch that we've done. So when you first come to Atom, of course, you get the dashboard. And the nice thing about the dashboard on our platform, especially compared to other ones, is the grants that you're seeing are actually curated for you. So either you as a research administrator, and definitely for your researchers, when they're coming to the platform, they're seeing grants that are matched for them based off of their profile. So when researchers get added to the platform, when they come join for the first time, our AI systems actually go and kind of scrape the internet for publicly available information about their research and compile this into a few bullet points of their research interest. Those are available on the research interest tab, so the researchers can then come and edit those. You can edit those if they're not a good fit as administrators as well. But when you first come to the platform, you're actually seeing grants that are matched just for you. I think in this case, my research interests are set to be biology, which is why we're seeing biology grants. And the core of this, how the matching works, is this AI-powered search engine that's fully semantic search. So what that means is you can put in full sentences of what you're looking for, or even paragraphs or papers. So of course, you can do keywords, you can search for chemistry or biology, but you can also do things like taking paper abstracts. So in this case, I'm going to take this abstract of a multi-agent motion forecasting and modeling. So we can put the full paper abstract into the search bar, run the search, and we're actually getting grants matched based off of that. So this is kind of what Tamara was talking about the ability to kind of search based off of context. So like for me, for my research in grad school, like I was in the chemistry department, you could search for chemistry or even physical chemistry. But my specific research was doing like entangled photon spectroscopy. And I think even kind of summarizing that just by a couple words, it can be really tricky. And the more context provided to our search engine, the better the search results will be. And they kind of understand some context. Our system kind of understands the context behind what you're trying to search for. Another part of this that we've kind of been working on and have made some big improvements to is the filtering. So we still have a lot of the same filters before, but they've just kind of have been working better, doing a better job at kind of narrowing down the grant options that you see. And a big one that we've actually added as part of this V2 is limited submissions. So you guys as research administrators can actually see which grants are kind of tagged as being a limited submission grant. I know that's really important for you all, especially as you're making sure that you're fulfilling the requirements or not double applying for these grants that are limited or anything like that. So we've kind of made a big improvement on the tag on that front. The big revamp for Atom 2.0 kind of goes the next step further, which is looking at the specific grant page. So if you've been using our platform for a while, you'll notice that kind of these pages have been updated and completely changed from what they looked like before. And a lot of this redesign was kind of built around the feedback that we were getting, both from researchers and research administrators, that the grant pages that we had were still way too detailed, really complex to get the key information out of, and sometimes even missing some of the important points that were hidden somewhere in the grant document, for example, that our website kind of just wasn't handling correctly. So the pivot that we've made now is actually processing the full web pages, the full PDFs, the full documents from the funding agencies, and pulling that information in and using AI to curate and generate these pages. So everything you're looking at from this line down is actually generated by AI based off of the context that's given to it from the grant. The advantage that this has is it's able to capture a lot more of the intricacies of these grants. For example, instead of the funding amount just saying award amount 5 million, like you'll see on a lot of other sites or even grants.gov, it kind of brings in that it's up to 5 million, but these other grants kind of have 400,000. Here's the number of awards per year, that sort of thing. So it's kind of capturing a lot more of the details and key information about the grant that's hard to capture. And a lot of other sites, including our previous version of Atom, didn't do the best job of kind of servicing that information. We've also focused on kind of providing a much more clear scope of, all of these things, the application process, the contact information, that sort of thing. But we haven't gotten rid of some of the features that people loved from the last version of Atom, such as the eligibility information. So we still have this window. So this is comparing the researcher's profile that is on our platform. So when you first sign in, you set up a research profile of who you are, what your job is, what your university is, what department you're in, that sort of thing. And we're comparing that to the specific grant. So for different researchers, when they come and view this eligibility window, obviously they'll see different things based off of the profiles that they have set up. So we've kind of been able to use AI to power the creation of this and succinctly show you why you're eligible and what requirements you're missing. And with the new system too, we've been able to see some massive improvements on this eligibility window. For example, I can't remember which grant, but one of the grants, you had to be a professor for at least 3 years, less than 3 years to be eligible to apply for the grant. And that was something that the old system just wasn't complex enough to kind of handle. And with the new system, with the way that we're processing these grants, kind of parsing in the full grant PDF and using your generated profile for you, we were able to kind of handle that and match your eligibility based off of that. One of the big improvements as well, because we're now kind of parsing the full grant documents, we have the links to all of the sources here. So any information that we're given here that we're using to kind of generate this stuff, you can kind of see in the sources here. So this is just linking to the NSF website. We also pull in the PAPG for NSF grants and the relevant documents for other funding agencies as well. So it doesn't just have the context of the specific grant proposal that you're looking at, but also like all of the NSF requirements as well. And part of the part that we've kept from the previous platform as well is showing similar grants. But the last key point of this is our Atom AI feature. So there's this Ask Anything in the chat bot here. So what this does is kind of exactly what it sounds like, lets you ask any question about the grant proposal, what the requirements are, what the font size needs to be, what the margins are, like anything like this, whether or not you're eligible. So it has context of you, the grant, and anything like this. And we've, of course, like kind of pre-generated a few questions for you as well for kind of inspiration for all of these grants. So for example, we could look at some of the review criteria for a specific grant. And our Atom AI system is kind of going and reading those documents and giving you an answer about what the requirements are for that specific proposal. And like I said, this could be anything. You could ask it, why am I a good fit for this grant? Or when the deadline is, who are the program officers, anything like that. And the system will kind of automatically surface that information for you right up front. I'll keep going through here. So we still have our grant favorites, the grant list. So we have the ability to kind of make multiple favorite lists based off of the areas that you're searching for. So if you're a research administrator and you're searching for specific researchers, you could kind of have a list for each of them. Or if you're a researcher looking at the platform and you have multiple research areas, you can kind of create different lists as well and kind of favorite those. So when we go to our favorites here, you're seeing exactly that. So you can kind of have a variety of different grant lists that you're kind of accumulating. And then you can also make these public. So if you're, like I mentioned, like if you're making a list for a researcher and then you want to share it with them, there's just a toggle here. You can copy the link. And when we go hit that URL, you're kind of seeing the public surfaced version of that. So other people can't edit the list, but they can kind of see what's on that specific list. And because I know we have a lot of research administrators on the platform as well, I'll give a quick overview of kind of the admin platform. I'm probably not going to go into as much detail here. A lot of this has kind of been around for a while. Yeah, this is our admin platform. So this kind of gives you an overview of all of your researchers and the activity, who's using the platform, how they're using it, what grants they're visiting, that sort of thing. So on a weekly basis, you can kind of see who's coming to the platform, how much people are engaging with it, that sort of thing. Obviously, this is a fake Atom University here, but that's generally what this would look like for you. And you also get an overview of the researchers, and I'll go to the admins here, but kind of we highlight some of the key usage points of what's happened recently. So if a researcher's favorited grants that's due soon, we're highlighting that. If they've just favorited grants or visited grants recently, we kind of show some of that information. And I'll go to myself as an example here, but we also show usage kind of for specific researchers, the research interest. So you as an admin can kind of go in and edit research interest for a professor as well. And yeah, one of the key parts, I'll back out to the research interest again. So the research interest, as I mentioned, sets up the grants that we're showing to you on the For You page, but we also have weekly grant emails that are sent out. So those grant emails have recent, like newly listed grants that are a good fit, maybe grants for the deadlines upcoming, or we're just kind of highlighting, the system's kind of flagged it as something that maybe you haven't visited yet and it thinks you should take a look at. And those are kind of processed into a little bundle and sent to all of the researchers and research admins kind of every single week. So you're kind of always up to date with what's out there, what's been updated, what's been posted, that sort of thing. And that's all driven by these research interests. And what we've heard is the research admins really like that feature because it can be hard to kind of convince faculty a lot of times to come to the platform and poke around and search for grants and that sort of thing. But with the automatic profile generation and then the weekly emails, you can kind of sign researchers up. And even if they don't have interest to come to the platform, they're kind of always up to date with recent grant opportunities that are curated for them from our platform. So you can kind of, yeah, always be, you can kind of see and make sure that those researchers are always up to date with that. So yeah, that's most of the platform and the updates that we have. As I mentioned, I think we're kind of just leaning more and more into AI, and we've taken a lot of feedback as well from our researchers and the research admins about how we could improve the platform. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing with this big V2 revamp is providing a lot more information, making it easier for you all to find grants for your researchers and for researchers to find grants for themselves.
Awesome. Thanks, Ham. Cool. We had a couple of questions, but I'll make sure to come back to those at the end. We're just gonna quickly move over to the next section. Let me just share my screen again. So now we're just going to quickly go through some of the lessons learned. As founders, we've learned so much during this process. And so, yeah, Ham, I had a couple questions for you. If you have questions for me as well, like feel free. But we'll just do a bit of a back and forth. So, tell us a bit about like what prompted us to actually build V2. Like, go into a bit of the technical details because it is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the initial motivation we came behind the grant pages specifically. I think the grant pages that we had just weren't doing a good enough job at providing all the information a researcher would need to decide whether or not to apply for that grant. And we were talking about how we could possibly revamp the pages and what would be the best improvement. And I think you were the one who came up with the idea of like, what if we just scrap everything and just got AI to make it? So that split second comment basically led to 2 or 3 months of us reworking the entire platform from scratch to really make sure that we were able to kind of have all of the necessary documents in our system and make sure that the quality of the generated grants was good enough for this revamp. And yeah, from the technical level, like it was pretty complex as well. I think I think what you'll notice with a lot of other grant platforms and the first version of our platform is you're actually not storing the PDF of all of the grants in your system, or even if it's a website for a foundation grant, like you're not storing the whole contents of that website in the back end of your system. You just kind of link to it and store some of the key information. How much is the funding amount? What day is the due date? Whatever else. So this pivot, for us, was kind of a full technical revamp of actually going and processing all of that data, storing all of those documents, and making sure our system could reference the documents and pull out the correct and key information 100% of the time. And I think we've been able to do that, like I kind of have touched on a few times, because of a lot of these advances in AI. We can be confident that our system is not only generating a page that looks pretty, but actually has the correct and relevant information from the different sources that we have.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really about, and there was a question that came through on this, does it include all funding opportunities, federal, foundation, and industry? It was really about like how do we put more data on our platform? This drive to diversify funding, we had to keep up with the times, and frankly, like traditional web scraping that a lot of these other platforms out there do. There was another question actually about how we differentiate ourselves. Traditional web scraping, you're just taking the original grant listing page and you're storing the title in a database row. You're storing the kind of description in a database table row. That can be quite restrictive when you're trying to, we now go out and scrape hundreds of thousands of different websites and foundations and these kinds of things to pull in information. And when you're trying to structure data across all of these different foundations, and a lot of them have, frankly, not the greatest websites. Sometimes they look like they were built in the 90s. It can be quite hard. You have to be opinionated if you're doing traditional web scraping as to what data are you going to store. And so the kind of spark that we had was, with AI, we can kind of generate these things on the fly. We can kind of rely on the LLMs to generate, markdown. We're getting a bit technical here, but we don't have to kind of store a specific structure anymore in a database. We don't have to just rely on a grant listing. We can just put in, way more information in terms of supporting documentation and get a much better kind of grant listing out the end of it. And so, yeah, that was kind of what what led ultimately to Ham having to work his butt off for the last 3 months. But yeah, he did an amazing job. So I'm sorry I had that one little insight on a random call on a Tuesday afternoon. Okay, next question.
I'll jump in
go on.
quickly, actually. So like I think that's a great point in terms of like the ability to kind of process more grants and process it accurately. And like even on the grant that I was demoing there, you guys saw a perfect example of that. Instead of the due date like being stored as a single due date with the whatever day, month, and year, like we were able to pull in a lot more information. Like sometimes grants have rolling due dates up to a certain point, and then it's monthly after that, or you have to actually submit a letter of intent before the actual grant due date, or you're not eligible to apply for the full submission. And with the old structure and with a lot of the competing platforms, how they're structuring their data as well, like you're just not able to handle a lot of those intricacies, and it kind of results in researchers either missing grant opportunities because they didn't realize that there were extra requirements or things like that, or just kind of grant listings that are wrong on one way or the other. So yeah, definitely a big revamp on this, and I think we're really excited about the potential for using it to find grants.
I see a lot of questions coming in the chat. I promise we're going to come back to them. We just want to make sure we get through everything. Ham, in your experience, like what are some of the kind of common misconceptions about AI that you've seen?
Yeah, I think the biggest one, especially in the research space, is kind of like distrust of the material that it's outputting. So not believing it, wanting to go double check it, and anything like that. And I think those concerns are all very valid and at the front of our mind as well when we redesign this platform. So the advantage that we have, as I've mentioned a couple times, is we're pulling in all of that data already. So these LLMs do a really good job when you're providing them context of what you're asking. So because we're able to go scrape these PDFs, scrape all the web pages, and really condense all of the core material into our prompts, we're able to reliably get the correct information out with almost no hallucinations. We've benchmarked our system against thousands of grants and a bunch of questions and all this sort of thing. And we've kind of been able to ensure that the information that is being generated is accurate. And I think that's the biggest one I've noticed. And I think as well, for me, when I first started using AI, that was a big concern because it was hallucinating a lot. But the models have improved significantly and as well. So the models have gotten better. And then because we're able to provide it such specific context in terms of what we're asking it's able to do a lot better job. So for example, if you're on our site and you ask it a specific question about a grant and you went to ChatGPT and said, here's the title of this NSF grant, and basically asked it the same question, you would get much worse results because GPT just has a way wider breadth of knowledge that it's trying to sort through and find the correct information, where our system kind of knows exactly what you're referencing and the exact document and the exact material that you're looking for. So it's able to kind of provide much higher quality responses.
I think, Ham mentioned also the advances in AI that have come about in the last, 6 months, even 3 months, to be honest. AI, when we started 2 years ago, that was a valid concern. Hallucinations were much more of a thing. And I think what I've kind of discovered during this process, is that the quality of models that are out there right now that we're using, that we're building on top of, has just increased exponentially, and it is going to keep getting better, and our platform gets better with every model that comes out, and so it's not going to stop. We're as these models get better, we're going to see more and more capabilities come out on our platform, various other platforms that are out there as well. So yeah, that was a good answer, Han. Thanks. Cool. We've got 20 minutes here, so maybe last kind of just general question. Like how else do you use AI in your day to day? We're building AI tools for researchers. How are you kind of using AI as a developer?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a great question. I think like for me as a developer, like building the platform, writing a lot of code, that's the biggest use case. I think a lot of the developer tooling is kind of on the forefront of the AI world, and a lot of the best and most heavily used tool. They're kind of built for developers. So whether it's writing code daily, asking questions about fixing bugs or whatever it is on our website, like that's kind of how I'm using it the heavy majority of the time. And then I think I've also noticed I use it a surprising amount on our own platform, just poking around, searching for grants for ourselves or with researchers who we're working with or whatever it may be. So those are kind of my biggest use cases for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure if I have an original thought anymore these days. I use it so much better. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Cool. Well, just quick kind of wall of love from other kind of customers who have used our platform. We rolled out to thousands of researchers across the US already today through various different institutional licenses. If you are interested in trying Atom out, I'll have a kind of slide at the end with a QR code where you can book a demo. But yeah, now is the time for questions. And Sandy, I will come back to you. I'm just going to go through some of the questions that are in the chat first. And so also, if this is the opportunity for anyone to come off mic if you want to and ask a question. What I'm going to try to do first though is I'll just go through in order the people who have kind of asked questions from the start that we haven't addressed yet. So Teresa was the first question. Her question was, if you're an administrator, how will AI know if your faculty are eligible for the grants? So this is a really great question. I'm happy to, if you want to kind of book a demo separately, I can walk you through that process as well. But essentially, it comes down to the fact that we have two different types of user and two different user experiences on our platform, that as a researcher and that as a research administrator. And when you're set up as a research administrator, you actually have the power and the capability to come in and view the platform as a researcher. So you can actually click through, see the recommendations they're getting, actually see some of the kind of personalizations in terms of eligibility explanations as well through the eyes of the researcher. And that's a unique experience that you will have as an administrator. But yeah, I'm happy to kind of run you through a personal demo of that. I just want to get through all of these questions today. So yeah, feel free to book a demo. I'm gonna leave a little QR code at the end. Thank you for that question, Teresa. That doesn't look like a question. Neither is that. Nihal asks, how does Atom differ from Pivot and funding institutional and grant forward? Really good question. I think we've already kind of explained a little bit about how we differentiate ourselves. I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that we're kind of integrating AI from the ground up. We're a new platform. We've come about in the last 2 years, and so we can really rethink the approach to finding funding opportunities. Things like helping, personalization, helping research administrators generate a profile without having to upload any information. Like grant forward requires a CV, for example. What we can do is we can actually just take a name and we can go and generate an entire profile about the researcher from publicly available information. We don't need anything more than name, their title and their department. And the AI is intelligent enough to go off and source that information by itself. And so it makes onboarding a breeze, basically, for institutions. We kind of can get hundreds of researchers onboarded instantly, getting those email recommendations. The second real key differentiator that the whole platform is built around, is the kind of semantic search capabilities. So going beyond keywords, all of those platforms you mentioned, Nihal, they're using keywords as their core search experience, right? And as mentioned, keywords just miss a lot of context. And so semantic search can help capture that context. It's a more natural searching experience. And, frankly, researchers enjoy that. And, being able to drop in things like previously rejected proposals, and search against those so you can reuse that same content. That's a really powerful use case. It's actually a good moment to just talk about privacy real quick, because I know we're kind of dealing with sensitive information sometimes, and actually as we're kind of researchers from our past lives as well, we're super familiar with the importance of even within your own institution not leaking your the work that you're doing sometimes, especially, you know, beyond your institution, right? You don't want your competition to know what you're working on. And so our system, you know, all of your data is contained within your kind of walled gardens. As a researcher, you know, your information is your information. It's never going to be trained on. You know, your research administrators can kind of see a bit of information about your research profile, just to help facilitate collaborations and those kinds of things. But we're never leaking any information of your kind of research interests beyond your accounts. Nihal, you know, there's a ton of other kind of differentiators there. You know, the way that we have the chat features to ask more questions. You know, if you do want to learn more, feel free to book a demo. I can walk you through every single one of those differentiators one by one. But yeah, thanks. That was a great question. Cool. Some love for Ham there. Yep. Melissa, does this include all funding opportunities, federal, foundation, and industry? Yeah, great question. I think we addressed this already, but yes, you know, the big reason behind the V2 kind of pivot is so that we can include, you know, more of that diverse kind of broader funders, these kinds of things. So yes, we do include all funding opportunities.
One quick point on that too, we're updating those grants. So the federal grants are getting updated every single day. We're kind of pulling in the new opportunities, updating if any grants have been canceled as well. We're kind of updating those on our platform daily. And then for foundations, we're basically doing it. It's probably closer to weekly. Those kind of change a lot less than the federal ones do. So we're updating those weekly, and I would say we're adding new foundation grants into our platform every single day at this point. So the size of our funding database is kind of always growing as well. So yeah, we have the full coverage, and it's not just full coverage. It's kind of making sure the coverage is actually up to date with the active listings too.
Yeah. One thing to note here is, you know, actually everything on our platform are active listings. You know, we're not looking at like past data necessarily. I know there are some kind of like Foundation, Central, or what you know, those platforms that are out there that are looking at like tax documents, these kinds of things. What our AI is doing is going off and it's scouring the internet for active listings, things that are available for your researchers to apply today or in the next year. They have a kind of submit proposal button somewhere on the landing page, so everything on our platform is active and available to apply to. You know, a lot of the federal opportunities are being pulled. You know, that's an important reason why, you know, we're updating those daily. So you know, we'll highlight when and if those get changed, pulled, etc. So you're not applying or spending time on anything that isn't actually available. Next question is from Lisa. Is it good at delineating the type of funding that would go through an OSRP office versus a foundation office? OSRP offices need to stay in their lane while pursuing more private and alternative funding in this grant climate. Trump.
Yeah, so I can maybe touch on this. Yeah, so like all of the grants in our platform are basically flagged as where the funder is. So if it's federal, if it's a foundation, if it's a corporate partner, if it's an association or society. So those are all kind of flagged, and so you can tell really easily when you're looking at a grant, basically which office it should go through and who should kind of be in charge of that. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. Filtering is a great way to do that. You know, you can come in, you can have an institutional license. The OSP can have an account. The foundation team can have an account. You can come in, you can do your own searches. You can filter by foundation, by federal, etc. And it's set up basically for the whole research office to really be supported here. Are there limitations on the number of researchers you can set up on an account? How does the pricing structure work? Maggie, great question. So generally, we don't limit the number of kind of accounts. What we do is we do institutional licenses. If you are interested in learning a bit more about that, again, you know what? I'm actually just going to throw this up now because there might be some interest. Feel free to book an intro call with me. You can do so by scanning that QR code there. Unlimited licenses. You know, we know that researchers ebb and flow year to year. Generally, we price based on the size of your institution. So feel free to book an intro call with me, Maggie. I will be happy to talk to you more about pricing for your specific institution there as well. Cool. Christine asks, is there a beginner Atom training module that would be available for PIs to view to help them use Atom 2.0? Great question. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to send a link to our documentation in the chat here. This is, a place that you can always reference as a researcher if you have any any questions about how to make the most of the platform. It's http://docs.atomgrants.com. You can kind of go there to learn a bit more about how to make the most of Atom. When we roll out to an institution as well, what we typically do is we will run a couple of onboarding sessions as well. So Christine, I'm not sure if you're from an institution that has a license already, but yeah, happy to kind of chat about that, or we can make more sessions available if that is if you are interested. Just reach out to your kind of research administration team, and yeah, we can get one sorted for you. Sandy, thanks for that. Maybe this is a good opportunity, Sandy. I know you had a question. Do you want to come off mic and ask that question, or?
I appreciated the way that you were going question by question in chat, so I put it in chat for you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well. I'll come on to it then, I guess. All right. Cool.
Well, it's essentially along the lines of the training. Right. So as Atom Grants learns and digs into these RFPs, I suspect that both of you co-founders are gaining quite incredible insights into the forensics of an RFP. So I'm wondering if you're going to do like a half-hour demo for new research administrators. Not only are we seeing a changing landscape and revolving door around researchers at universities, but research administrators, people that are coming new into this field, don't understand the complexity or variety across different RFPs. Is it an RFP or an RFA? What's the difference? What's the difference between an RFP and a BAA, right? So helping them understand the forensics of the opportunities that you're seeing across public, private, and philanthropic sponsors. And one of the key things is that not every funding opportunity is offered every year. Sometimes it's just one and done. And if you're applying to a federal agency, they're required to give you 90 days advance notice. That is, you'll see it in the Federal Register, you'll see it on grants.gov, and the simple grants, which will be replacing grants.gov. So we're going to see a lot of change in the next year. And one of the changes will be trying to harmonize all the variety types of funding opportunities across the federal agencies. And key for new research administrators is the shorter timeline that you have for philanthropic funding opportunities. So that's why it's so important that PIs, researchers, get these weekly emails from Atom Grants, because if it's posted on Friday and they learn about it on Monday, a philanthropic grant might have a 30-day deadline, right? Their applications are shorter, which you would think as a research administrator makes it easier to apply, right? But faculty need more time to shrink their data into a fewer number of words. And a philanthropic sponsor is going to say, within 150 words, describe your project, when they're really used to doing it in 15 pages. It's really hard for researchers to make that pivot. So I would love to see a 30-minute or a 45-minute webinar on Atom Grant's website that says, if you're new to research administration, this is what you need to know about RFPs.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have a monthly webinar series. So generally the question was, are we going to run more webinars basically around all of the kind of new requirements in with the current state of play, right? We already run monthly webinars, so if you're interested in learning about that, follow me on LinkedIn. I always post about the upcoming webinars. I'm gonna put a link to that in the chat into my account. That's probably the best place to learn about those. We also have a page on our website where you can learn more about those. Generally, we run those once a month, looking more at a lens of how AI is being used in research administration. We have a couple of different featured speakers. Last month was Laurie Schultz, who is the new AVP at Colorado State. Next month will be with Brian Evans from the University of Memphis, again, AI and research administration. But yeah, Sandy, I think one of our big focuses for this year is providing more resources to support the research, the research ecosystem, the research administration ecosystem. That is a fantastic idea, and I think would love to talk to you more about that as well. Potentially, we can collaborate on something like that. But yeah, thanks so much for your kind words. Cool. We have 5 minutes, and I want to. Sorry, Ham. I just want to make sure we get to everyone's questions here.
Yeah, that's all I was going to say. Yeah. So there's a few I can jump on quickly as I was reading those. So hopefully I'm not missing anyone. But I know, Alice, you asked a question about the system differentiating between institution and researcher limited submissions. So yes, we do that. I think that was like our main inspiration for this, was really building this for the research admins. And so for all the limited submissions that are flagged on our platform are for institution limits, not the researcher limits. So that is the goal there. I know, Zachary, yep, that you've understood that correctly. So the question is about weekly emails being curated specifically for each researcher based on their research interests. So that's correct. That's how it works. So basically every single professor on the platform will get a different email that's curated specifically for them and the new opportunities that are a good fit for them specifically. There's another one from Lisa. So can research administrators create profiles for professors? Yes, that's so when you invite a professor to the platform as a research administrator, the system will automatically go in and generate that for you. So they get created automatically, the profile gets built, and then you as the research admin can also then go into the platform, look at the profile and the research interests that our system created. And generally speaking, we found it does a really good job. But if there's specific things that you see that are missing or need to be changed, you can also go and edit the researchers' profiles as an administrator. Those were the few that I saw. Let's see what else there is.
There was one from Jennifer that came in. Can Atom build on previous searches to improve future results? In other words, does it have any ability to learn or adapt over time, like AI models such as ChatGPT, or is it limited to static search functions? Yeah, great question. We do store searches, we do store research interests. They evolve over time, obviously. We have kind of similar grants recommendations that are being made for you based on the kind of grants that you're looking at. So while we're not doing any training, we can kind of we do update your research profile over time based on the way you're interacting with the platform, and that will over time actually inform the recommendations that you are getting as well. Jennifer, sorry, I'm rushing through all of these. Looking ahead 3 to 6 months, are there plans to incorporate features like adaptive learning, user-informed refinement, or AI-driven recommendation tools that could enhance the platform's intelligence and utility for grant seekers? I think that's a kind of a continuation of the previous question. So yes, we're always kind of innovating, bringing new things to the platform. Atom v3 will come at some point as well, but between now and then, we're continuously rolling out new features, improving the search functionality as well. Will Atom grants? Yeah, that was Sandy's question. Thank you, Lisa. Given the tendency for philanthropic funding to have shorter windows, is there a function to see historic trends and not just active grants?
I can jump on this one. Yeah. So for any philanthropic funding, the active listing that I'm talking about are basically, we kind of map those forward. So if it's something that the system kind of recognizes as being a grant that's occurring year after year, we still add that to the system as an active listing with the due date that from the previous year, basically just kind of mapped ahead for another year. So we wanted to make sure we know that those windows are really short, and we didn't want to just have that basically live for a month or a couple, whatever, weeks on our platform. So we do kind of map those forward for all the foundation funding.
Cool. Last one, Teresa, given that NIH IDCs are being threatened and administration is mostly covered by those, do you offer scaled participation? In other words, could I purchase access, or can only administration officers purchase access? That's a good question. It also ties into a question previously, I think from Igatinathain. Generally, we do university licenses. If you are interested in a researcher-only license, drop me an email. We can work something out. In your case, we do have the option to come in. But yeah, generally it's university licenses. So if you do want access, reach out to your research administration team, get them to kind of book a demo. It always works better when it comes from you guys, because we're solving problems for you guys, right? Awesome. So this is it from us. If you do want to book a demo and learn how we can help you discover more grants, increase your funding, sorry, I've been rushing through questions there, and increase engagement on your team, feel free, just please, scan that QR code. I'm going to post a link to the same thing in the chat now as well, in case you're not able to scan the QR code. You can book an intro call with me by submitting the form at that link. We can have a quick chat, talk about how we can roll this out to your institution. And yeah, good to see all the familiar faces here, and all those faces that were new as well. Thanks so much for coming. We're super pleased to be launching V2 and share this with you. And looking forward to seeing more of you in future webinars. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Sandy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Keep innovating.